Have you ever looked at your profit and loss report in Xero and wondered which parts of your business are actually making the most profit? Is it a certain product or service that brings in the most profit? Is it a certain employee? Well, Xero has an incredible sort of hidden feature. I could say it's hidden because it's not obvious, and that is called tracking categories in Xero. And once you use tracking categories properly, you'll finally know which parts of your business are profitable and which ones are quietly draining your cash. In this video, I'll show you step by step how to set up and use tracking categories to find out exactly where your business is really making money. And I'll share one insider tip halfway through that even experienced Xero users often miss. Hi, I'm Ray Armand, a chartered accountant and founder of Xero Hero. I help business owners and bookkeepers master Xero so that you can make confident decisions and actually understand your numbers. If that sounds good to you, hit subscribe because I release new tutorials every week that help you to become a true Xero hero. So here we are in the Xero demo company. To find the tracking categories set up in Xero, you need to go to the accounting menu and go to accounting settings. Previously, in the old sort of menu that Xero had, you would go accounting advanced, but now you just go accounting account settings. Okay, so this is where you're going with the new menu layout. And all Xero licenses should now be swapped over to that new menu layout. But I thought I would just mention the old one in case your Xero is lagging behind. Okay, so you go to accounting settings. When you come to the settings screen here, under the accounting section, you want to look out for tracking categories. And that is where we can set up tracking categories in Xero. Okay, if you are new to using Xero and you have not previously set up tracking categories, this screen will just be blank and the only button that will be visible is this add tracking category option. But in the demo company, to demo this feature of Xero, they have set up a tracking category called region, and then they have entered in the different regions of the business. Basically, though, you can call your tracking category whatever you want, whatever makes sense to do. Now, when it comes to making the decision of what tracking category you should set up, you need to ask yourself the question of what information do you need as the bookkeeper or as the business owner? What information do you need to be able to make decisions in the business? Or to be able to spot trends in the business. Because at the end of the day, any information that we are entering in or like adding in this additional way to track transactions in Xero, we're not just doing it for the hell of it or for the fun of it. We are doing it so that once all those transactions have had a tracking category added to them, that when we run reports based on those, we then have information that gives us more insight into the business so we can make more informed decisions. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take the example of a business selling different products or different service lines, okay? So let's take service lines. Let's say you are a garage, a car garage, and you offer MOTs as a service, and then you just have general car repairs, and then you have like a tire focused part of your business. Okay, so you do it all. You're doing all these different things, and you are wondering which of those service lines, MOT, general repairs, or tires, is the most profitable to your business. That is a perfect example of a tracking category, like a user case for a tracking category. You will then set up one called like service line or whatever you want to call it, service line, and you would have one called MOT, repairs, and tires. Okay. I don't know garages, so I hope I've used a good description there, but yeah, that's one way. That's one example. Or if you are a business with multiple locations, you might want to do with what the demo company's done, like have locations or regions. Or if you have different salespeople or different people in the business responsible for providing a service or product, you can even create a salesperson one. Okay, so you create a tracking category. So let's say you did a sales salesperson. And you have Sam, Ross, and Susan. Okay, and you could add others here if you wanted. So hit save. So there you have the tracking category where you can track transactions based on their regions, and you have the tracking category where you can track people based on the salesperson. Now, limitations to note around tracking categories is that Xero does limit you to a maximum of 2 tracking categories. So if I go add tracking category, it's going to tell me I have got 2 okay, there we go. So you can, I wondered what it said for a moment there. You can have 2 active categories. So if in the future you decide, I no longer want to track based on salesperson, you could archive this tracking category and then you could have another one. But they give you a maximum of 4, of which 2 can be active. Okay, so the limitation that Xero has here is 2 tracking categories. And then within each tracking category, there's normally a couple of hundred category options that you can have. Okay, so what tracking categories do not work well for is for project tracking. So if you are a project-based business or or you want to track based on client, and your client lists or projects could grow into 1,000, this is not going to be a good tool for you because you will reach the capacity. Okay, if you want to track on a project basis with more than a couple of hundred projects or clients, if you're going to have more than a couple of hundred clients, you need to go to a dedicated tool like Xero Projects or some sort of add-on to Xero. Okay, so those are limitations to keep in mind. Other quick tips I want to give you at this point is I want to remind you, as is usual across a lot of what we do in businesses, keep it simple. Okay, don't necessarily use 2 tracking categories to start with. When you're getting used to this, maybe just start with 1, because actually just getting into the habit of adding in this additional detail and then being able to run the reports is going to be super powerful. And then in future, you can use the other category. Okay, because too many options can overcomplicate your bookkeeping and your reports. Now, once you've decided how you would like to slice and dice your financial information, because that's essentially what this is doing. It's saying any report you run in Xero, you will now be able to filter that report based on these factors that I have on the screen. So if you're running a profit and loss, how profitable was my business? You will be able to filter that report and see how profitable a certain section of your business is, depending on how you have these set up. You'll also be able to run a report with columns side by side, comparing different salespeople, different regions, or however you've set up your tracking categories. Okay, so that is what we have achieved by putting these tracking categories in place. It will become an option that you can select for every transaction that gets entered into Xero. Now, obviously, though, for this to work, as you do your bookkeeping, you have to make sure that you select the tracking category that it goes to so that every transaction is coded to one of these categories. So let me show you what that looks like when it comes to entering bills or invoices into Xero. So let's go and create a invoice for one of our customers. So we can either go to the sales screen, invoices, or don't forget you have your quick access menu top right here where we can say invoice. Okay, so invoices are for customers, bills are for suppliers. Okay, this is just showing me what it would look like because you have to just approve the layout, but I'll close it there. This is the screen you should come to. It's a fairly familiar screen. It should be familiar for most of you. Nothing special here. We're just going to enter in our customer name. It'll default to today's date. You can, of course, change that. Let's just plug in some information here. I'm not really worried. I'm not trying to show you all of this. But the key thing is you would enter in all your usual information, whether it's work done or product supplied, whatever it is, put a description. So there we go, and enter in the correct sales code. What you will notice now is there's 2 extra columns here. Okay, because I've added 2 tracking categories. As I said to you guys, I suggest only adding 1 to start with while you're getting familiar with this. And what you'll see here is when I click into that box, it gives me those options that I can select the region and the salesperson. This project column will only show if you are using the Xero projects feature within Xero. Okay, do note that these extra columns or this extra information that is captured will not appear on your customers' invoices. So this is just purely for internal tracking. So what you therefore need to do is every time a sales invoice is raised, you need to make sure you are putting a tracking category against that. And bills are very similar. Whether you are entering your bills directly into Xero from here, or we can say plus bill, or you are using something like HubDoc, which comes with Xero, or Dext, both those tools should pick up those tracking categories that you have created in Xero. Okay, so they should, once you've created those tracking categories in the settings, they should appear as a option in Xero. So let's say this is for repairs. We'll just put an amount in there. And you can see we've got our two columns that are our tracking categories. What region does it relate to? And what salesperson. Now, it might be a bit weird to say that a certain repair relates to a salesperson. So do keep in mind when it comes to tracking categories, you don't have to make sure that every single transaction gets a tracking category put against it. You can. Some people just choose to put the tracking categories against, listen to me, tracking categories. Yeah. Some people choose to just put or use the tracking categories for sales, and some people choose to just use it for expenses, and therefore on the other transactions not bother with the tracking category. My recommendation for robustness is to make sure that every transaction has a tracking category on it. And for those obscure incomes or expenses that don't feel like they relate to a specific tracking category, so like to say that this repair should be attributed to a salesperson feels weird. What you can do to overcome that, if we go back to our tracking category settings here, what I always recommend doing, if you're going to follow the approach where I say every transaction is mapped, and I'm going to explain more about why that's important in a moment, but what I recommend doing here is adding an option called head office or overhead expenses or something. Okay, I'll hit save and have head office here too, so that when you get expenses that are like this, like repairs, and you can't really say, well, you know, it's Ross's fault that we're having to repair, I don't know, something in the office. It's just the general maintenance. That is where you would, okay, it's going to update unless I refresh my screen, but that's where you would select head office here. Okay, so that's what it's like entering in your transactions, and it's just about selecting the option from the drop down. Why do I say it is important to make sure every single transaction has a tracking category that it's been assigned to? And that's the reason why I say that is because human error always happens. Okay, there's always a chance that a really important income or expense is missed, or just even not really important, but just a few are missed. Okay, so say you are trying to work out if a job is profitable, or you using this to track sales per salesperson, or you're using it to uncharge costs to one of your customers. If you mistakenly miss costs, that can have a knock-on effect on your business. So how can you avoid this? My recommendation is to make it a practice that every single transaction has a tracking category against it. And then you can run this report. You have two choices here. Okay, I'm going to show you a really cool trick you can do, and you run this report about minimum of once a month. You can do it once a week. You either run a find and recode report where you can pick up any transactions that have not been assigned to a tracking category, or a nice visual to look at is running your profit and loss report. And what you do is you filter the profit and loss report for unassigned transactions, like transactions that have not been assigned to a tracking category. So you come here, you can, this is comparison, we want to filter for salesperson that is unassigned, where we have forgotten to assign it to any salesperson. And equally, you could also filter for unassigned regions. Now, if you have been good about doing this, then if we compare this month, this is one of my favorite reviews to do, is you say this month compared to any number of months you want to compare it to. We filter it for unassigned regions and update. What should happen if you're making sure that every single transaction has been assigned to a tracking category, is that you will then be able to quickly see those transactions that were mistakenly missed, and you can jump in and reassign them. If you want to do this faster, you then go to the find and recode, and that is super useful. Now, if you want confidence in how to run find and recodes and things like that, then join one of my live Xero training sessions. They are free. I've got a wait list running at the moment because I'm not sure when my next one will be. But if you go to the link below, www.rayarmand.com, there you can find the details to sign up to one of my training sessions and actually learn how to do some of these cool things like find and recodes and how to use tracking categories at an even deeper level. Okay. So when it comes to using tracking categories in your business, the key is consistency. The more accurately you tag transactions, the more meaningful your reports will be. And that is why I'm such a big fan, if you're going to use tracking categories, committing to making sure every transaction is assigned to a tracking category, using the head office to encapsulate all those other ones that you don't want to assign to a specific tracking category, and then checking at least once a month that you haven't mistakenly missed any transactions. So in this demo company, there's loads of transactions here. We can drill down into any one of these that haven't got a tracking category assigned to them. So you would have to drill down into each of them and make sure, as this page loads, that all of these then get a tracking category added to them. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do here. And you can see that once you've got that sorted, you can do really cool things. Like if we come to this profit and loss, reporting profit and loss, which is where we are now, we can then, if we get rid of this month-on-month comparison, we can then compare, well, how did East Side do versus North versus South versus West Coast? You can then get a side-by-side comparison to see how different areas of your business have performed. So there's some really cool reports. And once you get your reports looking the way you want, one of my top tips is always to save these reports as custom. And then if you favorite those reports, which I've spoken about in previous YouTube videos, you can then access them at a click of literally click, 2 buttons, and you're there. Okay, so remember to save the report as your favorite, and then perhaps even schedule it in your diary to automatically come and run this report on a regular basis so that you can see how different areas of your business are performing and you can identify trends. So that's how you use tracking categories in Xero, to see exactly where your business is making money. Set them up once, use them consistently, and you'll have a mini profit report for every area of your business. And if you would like to go deeper into Xero setup or managing the reporting or just identifying trends using the information available in Xero, join one of my free live Xero Hero training sessions. I'll pop the link below. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.